So, you're thinking about adding an ADU to your home, huh? Well, you're not alone. Across Massachusetts, homeowners are starting to transform basements, attics, and even backyard sheds into sleek little apartments. Turning that unused space into something valuable like an ADU could be your ticket to real estate greatness. Plus, let's be honest, it's a great way to tell your neighbors, hey, I'm not just adding space, I'm upgrading the neighborhood. Over my career, I've helped plenty of homeowners navigate that ADU journey. Take one in Lexington. Single-family home built into the side of a hill with a walkout basement. The owner wanted an open concept layout, so the kitchen, dining room, and living room were all sort of one long room. Problem was, there wasn't a lot of natural light. He only had 2 double-hung windows above the kitchen sink. I told him, there's not enough light. This is going to feel like a cave. He shrugged it off. I came back a week later. Surprise! The kitchen wall was reframed with larger and more windows, completely changing the space. Then, there was another one over in West Newton Hill. The owner called and listed an ADU apartment with me above a carriage house. I went to preview it and he showed me the place. And then he mentioned, proudly, that he installed a high-end security system. Because, you know, ADUs are apparently high targets for jewel thieves. Let's be real. Nobody's keeping a diamond collection in an apartment above a garage. If he called me first, I could have saved him thousands. But before you start sketching the floor plans and get going, just know that the ADUs come with their own set of rules because, let's face it, Massachusetts loves its regulations. Zoning laws, building codes, parking requirements, yada, yada, yada. It's like its own language. But luckily for us, my next guest knows that language. Please welcome Mike Robbins, attorney with Crowley and Cummings. And thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been practicing law now for over 23 years, and I'm licensed in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Florida as a practicing attorney, and then I can also help buyers and sellers in both New Hampshire and Maine as well. So, and my whole breadth of my practice has been just in residential and commercial real estate. So I don't have really any other practice areas. I do some zoning work as it relates to real estate on my town zoning board of appeals. I have an amazing wife, two young boys, and it is pretty much just juggling work-life balance and the chaos that goes with that.
So you're one of us.
That's it.
You know, because I'm a real estate broker, I understand the ADU thing. However, but to our viewers, can you give us some insight of why Massachusetts needed to implement such a sweeping zoning law?
Yeah, because it is pretty sweeping. It's one of the, I would call it the largest changes to the zoning laws from the legislature to the Commonwealth in my career. And the push behind this was really to create more housing without creating more urban sprawl. So it's kind of, to a certain degree, it's low-hanging fruit. So there's a lot of existing housing stock and a large aging population.
Correct.
And what's happening is that aging population needs less of that space, but they want to stay in their own home. And by able to create an accessory dwelling unit by right, and that's kind of the big change, it hopefully will incentivize people to basically create that space, either stay in that space, rent out that space, and put more housing stock both in the rental market, but also have flexibility for families.
And also, in my career, the small apartments, whether it's a one-bedroom or a studio, are really hard to find because the majority of the housing stock that was built 75 years ago, no one needed a one-bedroom apartment.
That's exactly right. As a landlord, my one-bedroom rentals are the easiest to rent. It's
Supply and demand.
It's a misnomer. Anytime I have a pending vacancy with one of my one-bedrooms, I don't even think about it.
Right.
It'll be occupied and rented in no time.
Right, and I've told my investor clients, find a big old Victorian that's chopped up into 9 two-room studios. It's a cash cow.
Cash cow.
Yep.
And you just won't have those dead months of no tenants.
Right.
The turnover, it's just great because the people, if you price your units well too, they'll stay. I mean, it's really.
And you also get the best return for those. It's like a single family house.
Absolutely, but
you pay a premium not to have a roommate.
That's it. That's
that
exactly
privacy.
It.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of misconceptions about what an ADU is. Can you define that more specifically?
Sure. So an accessory dwelling unit, it can mean a lot of different things. It can be anything from a detached, kind of like a granny flat, a conversion of a barn, of a space into a dwelling unit. It would have its own egress, it would have its own kitchenette, bathroom. The state really wants to have self-contained unit. It can be a unit in a basement.
Okay.
It could be a unit in the attic, as long as it's got fire and safety egress.
Right, it's got to be built up to code.
It's got to be built up to code. It could be basically a bump out. So let's say you had a porch and you wanted to convert that space into a living space. So you could do bump outs. You could.
Are you saying change the footprint of the house?
You could.
Okay.
Yep. So you
Say
could
more
build
about
that.
that.
Well, just think of it like an addition. So let's just say you wanted to add a dining room to the side of your house.
Okay.
It would be substantially the same, but now you're going to be adding a self-contained living space.
Gotcha.
And so this is for both seniors who want to age in place. It's for the younger generation that is just can't afford to buy into this housing market, but they want to have their own separate space within a dwelling.
Right.
And accessory dwelling units, this isn't a new thing.
This younger generation, I mean, nobody's moving back home.
I think it's.
I'm joking.
Oh. Sorry.
I apologize. I have a very dry sense of humor, and sometimes
I just bit on it. Yeah,
no
sorry
worries,
about
no worries.
that. But it's just a situation where this is an old concept. You know, traditional New England homes, you'll see the primary house and then an addition and then another addition to that. This is a continuation of that, but it is a step backwards
I've lived
on the
all over
regulatory
New
state.
England. I was born in Vermont, then we were there, and then we moved to Maine, and I moved back to the New Hampshire, Vermont area, and then to Boston. But it's funny that you mentioned that. I've never thought about it, but there are so many farmhouses throughout New England that you'll see that. There's the main house, and then there's a bump out, and then there's another one.
Bump. Yeah,
You know,
that's exactly it. Those are essentially accessory dwelling units.
Right.
And this is just a continuation of that, but an easing of the regulatory oversight.
It makes sense. In the past, I've seen a lot of different nudge, nudge, wink, wink in-laws.
The bonus apartments?
Yes, some of them didn't have stoves. Because depending on the municipality, they classified single-family dwellings by counting the number of stoves.
Certainly.
Is that going to be an issue?
So interestingly, it's almost just the reverse.
Okay.
And so in this case, now to be considered for what's called a protected use ADU, the Commonwealth really wants to have those units have power for stoves, have their own bathroom,
Yep.
And so one of the reasons, and there are many, but one of the reasons is those illegal apartments that were in the basement that have just been there, that aren't up to code, that aren't quite safe. This is a real encouragement for those property owners to make those up to code.
Come out from the shadows.
Come out from the shadows. Because what happens is those units have been in existence for some time, and they might not have two forms of egress. And that's one of the biggest concerns. And that's where the state really just wants to bring those up to code into safety space, and it's going to have that Kitchen 220 power.
Right. Now, speaking of egress, if I were to, put a unit above the garage and I had a fire pole, would that be okay for an egress?
I don't think so for code. A fire pole would not, the parachute out the window or that. Well, back to New England, you would see the roll-out ladders.
Yes.
Yes, the fire pole, the roll-out ladders are probably.
Fire poles are fun.
I don't disagree, but they have to be a little greased. You don't want those just completely dry.
There you go.
You want to have some form of friction to be able to go down on them.
Okay.
Yeah. You can get stuck on those.
Moving right along. Does the unit have to be rented, or could the owner live in that unit?
Well, so this is one of the great changes with the law. Previously, a lot of municipalities would say, previously what you would do if you wanted to have an accessory dwelling unit, you'd go to the building department. You would get denied. You would appeal that denial, go to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
ZBA.
The ZBA. And you would then have to notify all of your neighbors within that circumference. It's usually 200 yards, depending on towns, whatever the bylaws are. But their notice requirements, notice all those, have a public hearing about it, and then you'd have to seek permission. That's
to get through.
A couple of steps. And then what's happened now is the states removed that. And they said, listen, in certain circumstances, you can request what's called a protected use ADU, and that will, now you're going to go to the planning department, and you're going to go look for what's called site plan review, which is, again, you don't have to have the public notice. The site plan review will likely be a public meeting, but you don't have to notice your neighbors.
So the Joneses or the Smiths aren't going to get a letter.
That's right.
And they're not going to run to the city and say, oh, not in my neighborhood.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And that's one of the goals, is to remove that obstacle and to facilitate the building of these specific spaces.
I see. Now, do they have to be owner-occupied?
They do not. And again, that's where we were just getting to. What would happen is the towns would say, okay, we're going to grant you your special permit, but you have to owner-occupy it. Or you can't rent it to anyone else but family. It has to be a family rental.
That limits things.
Absolutely.
Substantial. I mean, it's almost... It's a huge hurdle of area.
So now, from an investor perspective, let's just say you have a single-family home. If you convert space or add an additional detached ADU, what's going to happen is that you can get market rate for that rent.
That opens up a lot. For all intents and purposes,
absolutely,
every single family is now a multi.
I wouldn't call it a multi. I would call it a single family with a legal accessory dwelling unit.
Okay.
They really want to have a key distinction. This ADU law for a protected use ADU is only applicable to single family homes. So if you have a duplex, if you have a multifamily house like a 2 or a 3.
Because here in Newton, and again, I give kudos to Newton because they were ahead of the curve. In probably 8 to 10 years ago, they pushed through an ADU by right for single family and 2 family owner occupied.
Yep.
So they're sort of ahead of the curve, but it has to be owner occupied. Question, Mike, does the state law supersede the Newton ordinance where saying Newton has to be owner occupied?
It will for single family.
For single families, yes, that's what I meant.
For single families, so let's just say you went and gotten approval, but there's a deed restriction. And that said, that deed restriction that you had to have recorded would say, hey, listen, you're allowed to have this ADU, but let's just say it's for your Aunt Judy.
Yep.
We're giving you this for her lifetime. That deed restriction is now no longer legally enforceable.
Did you know, I never liked Aunt Judy.
Well, you know what? She's not going to make it much longer. So,
I love your sense of humor.
all right.
We're on the same page. Okay, so my next question is for owners that don't have city water and sewer. Is this going to affect people with a Title V situation?
Absolutely. So
Okay.
typically speaking, what's going to happen is most communities, if you went to the town building commissioner, forget ADU at all, you just said, hey, I'm adding a bedroom, I'm adding a bathroom, they're going to say, hey, listen, you have a 3-bedroom septic capacity.
Right.
You're going to need to upgrade to a 4-bedroom septic capacity.
What if there were empty nesters and there were only 2 occupants? Doesn't matter?
It won't matter because they typically go by bedrooms.
Okay.
Typically, but not always, they're using an estimation of 110 gallons per day per person. And what happens is the city doesn't want to try to regulate how many people are living in the house and who's
There's no way
there.
to regulate that.
There's just not.
It's
They would have tried.
completely
if they could have,
enforceable.
it would have,
Yeah.
right. So realistically, what some communities are going to be pretty strict with their Board of Health.
Yep.
Other towns will say, hey, listen, we're going to, if you convert this bedroom into an office, maybe you can use that bedroom for your ADU.
And converting a bedroom to an office could be simply just removing
The closet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another alternative is some towns will allow you to add a additional leaching section of your leaching field.
Okay.
So instead of having you require you to update your entire system,
Yep.
hey, can you add some capacity?
That big cesspool,
The leaching field.
right. Right.
So where the soil's able to absorb the nutrient load from the system.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so each town's Board of Health is going to be working with that. And the towns aren't going to have real control over that.
Okay. Do you see towns trying to box people in and not, we all saw Milton fight the MBTA laws. In my humble opinion, thank God they weren't successful at that. However, do you see municipalities pushing back against the state for the ADU law?
I think at the fringes.
Okay.
I think for most people, if you're adding space because your parents are aging, or
Right.
you're adding space because your kids have moved back home because the housing market is such a challenge,
Right.
or you want to add an accessory dwelling unit for rental, and you're supplying a desperate need for the Commonwealth as far
Right.
as housing, I'm a big property rights advocate. I think it's a real challenge for me to be like, no, you can't do this on your property.
Right.
I own this 4 corners of this lot, that's mine. As long as you're within the setbacks, you meet the design standards of the town, the house is up to code, the accessory dwelling unit is up to code.
Yep. It's safe.
It's safe.
Right.
Who are you to restrict that access?
Right.
And so I think from a property ownership perspective,
Sure.
I think towns will want to have really strong design standards. That's what the site plan review is really going to look to. They want to have this be attractive.
Right.
What they don't want is 5 single-family homes with 5 accessory dwelling units in the front yard, people
Right.
parking on the front yard,
Right.
and those type
And
of
again,
things.
if it's done poorly and unregulated,
It's going to look bad.
well, and that affects other people's value.
And that's when people get upset.
Right. And justifiably so.
And justifiably so.
Absolutely. Now, what about, in the last 5, 10, 15 years, we've seen B&Bs, Airbnbs. Is that part of this regulation?
So one of the regulations that the towns are able to do is they're able to flatly restrict short-term rentals.
Okay.
So they can deny an accessory dwelling unit to be used for short-term rental. So
And by short term, you're saying less
30
than
days.
30 days.
30 days, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yep.
30 days and under, they'll be able to restrict that.
Gotcha. But 6 months is fine?
6 months is fine. Anything over 30 days?
Anything over 30 days. Got it.
They don't want to have the short-term rentals. You think of like the Cape. That's just going to put a lot of added pressure on those communities from a rental perspective.
It's true. Now, over the years, I've seen a lot of different types of units, some in garages.
Absolutely. The old Fonzie apartment.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, but you have to be a certain age to get that reference.
And we're old enough to get it.
We are old enough to get the Fonzie. That's it.
Sorry.
Right upstairs.
That was terrible. Yep. I'm sorry. I apologize for all my viewers.
You did butcher. Yeah.
Okay, moving right along. When I brought up garages, I was talking, my point was the foundations.
Yeah.
That's a big question.
That's a big question, and that's going to be up to the local building commissioners. But typically speaking, if you're going to be adding plumbing and electrical lines, you're going to need frost protection. And so whether it's footings that they're going to be made to
vapor
install,
barrier,
they're going to have their own design standards to make that conforming with code.
Would it be possible to build up from?
I think so, as long as structurally it's efficient. I mean, the problem is most garages were just not built to, say, add all of this space for...
When it comes down to it, it might be more cost effective just to take it down and start over.
Depending on the garage.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the problem with that is you want to be very thoughtful, because let's say that's a pre-existing non-conforming structure. I'd be very slow to tear something down without express written permission that that you're able to rebuild.
Where it is.
Otherwise,
because if the setbacks aren't right and
if the
existing
setbacks aren't
non-conforming...
right, then what would happen is you wouldn't be allowed a protected use ADU, because now it's non-conforming.
Yeah.
And so now you'd have to seek a variance, which is a pretty strong legal standard to meet.
It is. So, and am I right in saying that when we're talking about multifamily versus single family with an ADU couldn't be condoed out?
No, that's again one of the restrictions. It has to be accessory to the primary dwelling. And so whether, let's just say you build a detached ADU, what the Commonwealth doesn't want is now that lot getting split and that ADU being sold off separately.
Right.
No, this needs to be accessory to the primary and can't be cleaved off and resold.
Okay. I know you're not an economist or a fortune teller, but how do you...
I am an economist. That's what I got my master's in.
Okay. Okay, right back at me. Where do you see this? Do you see this helping the housing market? Do you see it adding value to property?
I look at it at much more of a micro level. I think it'll help a lot of homeowners. As will it help the housing market on a large macro scale? I don't know. I think certain investors are going to see the opportunity to say, hey, listen, I have got a split level ranch that's being rented out. I'm going to convert that lower level into an ADU. And now I have two rental income streams for that. I think a large percentage is going to be, hey, we're going to add some space for kids, aging parents, have more flexibility with their own property. Will this fundamentally change the housing market? No, but it's some low-hanging fruit, and we can really hopefully move things along. And I think for people who want to build a larger ADU, they're still going to need a special permit. But I think the towns and the building departments are going to be more experienced with these as they come through. So
the size is limited to 900 square feet at this point?
Correct. Or 50% of the gross living area of the primary dwelling.
So if you have a 1,500 square foot house, you're limited to 750?
That's it.
Okay.
What they don't want is, let's just say that same example, they don't want you building a 2,000 square foot ADU. And, you know, making the house smaller. It's got to be consistent with the property.
If a homeowner wanted to go over that 900 square foot limit by 50 or 150
Then they
square
just
feet.
go right to the town, and they seek to get a special permit. So
But is there a break point at around 1,000 square feet?
there can be from a code perspective.
Okay.
There's been some changes to that, so I don't want to speak too specifically on that. But one of the reasons was building code will typically, there's a tipping point with if you add an addition or make changes to the structure of the house, where the Commonwealth is going to say, hey, we want the whole property up to modern code. So now you're rewiring the house, for example, or re-insulating.
And I've seen that with some of the property management that we've done. We've done renovations, and all of a sudden we start making too many updates, and they're like, no, the kitchen outlets have to be up to code, and it's a domino effect depending on what you're doing.
Depending on what you're doing.
Yep.
And so it's just being thoughtful about that as well.
Yep. Do you have any ADUs yourself?
I do. I didn't know it at the time.
You didn't know it at the time.
So when we moved to Southborough, we have a small mansard, which is a style of home.
Yep.
And relatively speaking, it's only about 1,600 square feet. And in the backyard.
But most people, up until the 1980s, grew up in 1,600, maybe 2,000 square feet. If you had 1.5 baths,
yeah,
you were living high in a hog.
Oh, you know.
Yeah.
You know. Now it's like
Right.
unwashed peasant, living in a house like that. No, but seriously, I wanted a smaller. My wife and I wanted a smaller house.
Sure.
And we had a barn in our backyard, and it was in real state of disrepair. It was practically falling down.
Was it post and beam and peg?
It was.
Yeah. Yeah, we had one of those too.
And fieldstone foundation.
Yep.
And what happened is I'm not a tool guy, I'm not a toy guy.
Yep.
And what we did is we needed more space. And so I built that barn into a small ADU.
There you go.
And so we had to install a foundation, but it's plumbed.
Did you jack it up?
Oh yeah, we had to jack it up.
That's a big project.
We would do 4-foot sauna tubes, and we do sections at a time. So it was probably like a 2-week process.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because it wasn't like a whole house lift, and so they would just do a section at a time to tie it all in.
Yep.
And then, honestly, it just from where it is, I could never have built there if it had fallen down because it's pre-existing non-conforming.
Exactly.
And now it's 460 square feet, plumbed, electric, everything.
Great little studio.
That's it.
Yep. Yep.
No, and it's got a nice loft.
Great.
Yeah. Who knew?
There you go.
Yeah. Time machine.
Listen, I really want to thank you for stopping by.
Oh, reach out anytime
again.
if there's any other questions.
Again, I want to thank you for joining us. This is Mike Robbins of Crowley & Cummings.
That's it. Real estate extraordinaire. All I
go.
do, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, is helping people buy, sell, and invest in real estate.
Sounds great.
Thanks again.
Thanks again for joining us.
Have a great night.